Please welcome to the podcast the lovely and talented Dawn Wells.
Hello.
Hey, thanks for doing the show, Dawn.
Oh, this is so much fun. I'm glad to talk to you guys.
So how do you describe a Ginger and a Marianne?
Yeah, explain the concept briefly to
it's
our
very
listeners.
simple. It's the girl next door that you want to marry, or it's the one night stand. That's all I can say.
Is that what it comes down to?
Well, no, I think you had to be quite a mature person to take out Ginger. You'd have to buy her a cocktail and get all dressed up. And Marianne would play baseball with you and be your best friend. And it's kind of the girl next door, I think. I think she's the marrying kind.
I've heard you say that you like the way it works out because most people say they would rather be your Marianne.
Yeah, but of course they're talking to me. They wouldn't say they'd rather have Ginger.
That's true.
I'm not sure how that goes, and I feel sorry for her if they always say they're a Marianne fan to her. I just think as a 14-year-old boy, Marianne is the one you'd have the crush on. As a 25-year-old man, Ginger would be more your type. So Sherwood Schwartz knew what he was doing. He covered all the bases, I think.
And there was a weird story of one of the actresses who auditioned for Marianne, of all things.
Oh, and I think that's a rumor.
Oh, yeah?
Really? You're talking about Raquel Welch?
Raquel Welch, yeah. There were 3 characters that were school teachers for the pilot. And when CBS decided to buy it, they said, let's rewrite. Let's make the characters more interesting. So they wrote a movie star, a Marianne and Mrs. Howell. And the casting, I think, was the difference between the girl next door and the sex symbol. And I think he just covered all the bases. I think it's a very interesting concept because as a 14-year-old boy, Marianne would have been your friend. She'd have been your friend if you were, a girl. You'd been buddies. But you had to be pretty sophisticated to appreciate a Ginger.
Well, didn't you, even if Raquel Welch didn't audition, didn't you beat out something like 300 women?
Well, yeah, and they said that she auditioned for us. I didn't see it. We auditioned for about a week at TV City, one after the other, trying to match up the chemistry with the professors and the Mariannes, et cetera.
Sure.
And they said that she came in to audition, and I think it was before that BC fur bathing suit that she wore, because she'd have been a better Ginger than a Marianne. She was so sexy. But I don't know where it was in her career at that stage. I'm not sure.
Let's talk about your co-stars.
Okay. Gossip? What are we
Just
talking about?
name the first ones that pop into you, like which ones you're the closest to.
Well, that's interesting because there was no discord. I think the professor and I were grouped together because we were and the rest, for the first couple of years. And he had the best sense of humor, surprisingly enough, with all of us.
The late Russell Johnson.
The professor.
The professor. He was very funny. And, of course, Gilligan is just, I thought, probably an incredible talent. Physically could bumble and fall out of trees and do everything. And he was, comedy timing was terrific. Alan and I used to hit golf balls together and share recipes. Mrs. Howell swam naked in her swimming pool every day until she was 92.
I love that.
She never invited me. I didn't get to do that, but she was a lovely lady. I think the least contact I had was basically Ginger and Mr. Howell. I think we were the least, and there was no enemies or anything like that, but just sort of hang out with people you have things in common with,
You did 39 episodes a year back then, didn't you, Dawn?
Can you imagine? Yes.
Yeah. And it took, a week to do an episode? You guys spent a lot of time together.
We did spend a lot of time together, and that's one of the things. I'm the ambassador for MeTV, and what's so interesting to me is there's so many shows I never got to see. You work till 9:30, 10 o'clock at night, and you don't, all the shows that you're opposite and things you don't get a chance to see, like the Partridge Family and the Monkees and that kind of stuff.
Oh, right, and especially the shows that were shooting when you guys were in production.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm catching up, which is just great.
Now,
that's fun.
I heard a story that when Mrs. Howell died, there was something that she had that you wanted to keep for yourself.
Really?
I hope this is true.
Well,
Someone told me she had like a rose tree or something.
Oh, a rose bush. Oh,
A
yeah,
rose
a rose bush. Oh, yes. I called her business manager and I said, I know you're selling the house or anything, but could I have a couple of your roses? And I dug up 3 of her roses and they're in my yard. But one of the things that Natalie was just completely different than what you thought she was. She was very smart and very, very funny. And when she left, when she was leaving, she said, I want you all my best friends to get into my bar. And it was all papered in zebra painting. And she said, I just want you to empty the bar while you can. So we all sat around and told Natalie stories and drank everything in her bar, which was just really wonderful.
Oh, that's great. I was doing research, Dawn, and I didn't know she was married to the great character actor Louis Calhern.
Louis Calhern, yeah.
From Duck Soup.
Yes.
Yeah.
Was he in Duck Soup?
He's Groucho's nemesis. Yeah, Trentino.
Oh, really? Oh, okay. Yeah. He was very dramatic,
I think
I guess.
Jungle, isn't he?
Oh,
he?
yes,
He's in the
yes.
Asphalt Jungle
He's
with
like an English
with
teacher.
Marilyn Monroe and Sterling Hayden.
Oh, I'll have to look at that. He was
Yeah, he
quite
had a
an
big
actor.
career.
Yeah. He was quite a drinker too, I guess.
And I heard that actually I think my mother was working in the department store at one point. And
In Brooklyn?
It probably.
Yeah.
And she was like, you know, a kid working, and she one time saw Lewis Calhern
Love it.
there, and she remembers that he carried himself exactly like you'd imagine Lewis Calhern to carry.
Immaculately
He, wore
dressed
a
and everything.
Cape. Yeah, he wore a cape that he threw around his shoulders. And,
You know, you hear funny things too, Dawn, and who knows if the Raquel Welch thing was apocryphal or not. I read that Natalie left some of her fortune, if not all of her fortune, to her teacup poodle. Is that true?
No. She didn't have a teacup poodle to begin with. She had a chihuahua.
so
The
basically,
things you
and a German
find.
shepherd. No, I'm kidding. No, I don't know. She left a lot of her money to the motion picture home.
She did.
Yeah, she had no children, and she left quite a bit, $5 or $6 or $7 million, I think, to the home.
Uh-huh.
so basically we're batting 1,000 a year with our question.
Who does your
Raquel
research?
Welch may be true.
And it was a strange thing with the theme song that it was that weird thing where like in like the first one it was like and Gilligan and the other people.
And the rest.
Oh, and
Yeah.
the rest.
Professor and I were the rest, as a matter of fact. We used to send little cards saying, love the rest. It was a billing issue. I think Ginger was the last person to get billed, and I think her contract said nobody after her. So after we went on for a year, Gilligan said, I'll put my name in the back of the thing. This is just ridiculous. There's only 7 people. So they renegotiated all of that. I mean, you know, I was brand new. I mean, I'd been working quite a bit as an ingenue doing all the guest star spots, but I was brand new to what was going on. You know, we didn't get a dime for the residuals. We're one of the longest running shows in history of television, 50 years last year.
Yeah,
Never been
yeah.
off the air. Not 10 cents do we have.
Sherwood Schwartz made a few bucks, though.
Yeah, I did a thing for CBS called TV Moguls. And they were talking about the most successful. And he was quoted as saying he made $90 million on the reruns of Gilligan's alone. I don't know whether that's true or not, but
I'm going to take a wild guess that you didn't make anywhere near the money that Sherwood Schwartz made on Gilligan's Island.
no, he could have split $1 million among 7 of us. It would have been all right.
That would have been nice. I think wasn't there money in writing the theme song? I mean, isn't that why? And I heard this. I hope this is true that he wrote the Brady Bunch theme song as well
Yeah.
as the Gilligan's Island theme song because there were residuals in the music.
And everything. I mean, you don't realize it. Nowadays, everything's covered. But it was the first time I think VHS came out and we got paid for 5 runs of some little episode. Nowadays, you know, Jim Backus used to be so mad. He was so cute. He was so cheap. And he would say, oh, he wasn't. I'll tell you a cute story. He was. He never had a dime in his pocket. But he kept saying, why aren't we going to get these residuals? Why aren't we? And it was the law. I mean, people have taken it to court. You can't start over.
Of course.
You know.
Very funny in It's a Mad World
yes.
as the drunk pilot.
And he was most proud of Rebel Without a Cause, where he played the dramatic.
Sure.
Oh, did he have any stories about James Dean?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I
range.
didn't hear it, but he was so proud of doing that film.
He also did one of my favorite Christmas carols.
Which one?
Mr.
Mr.
Magoo's
Magoo's.
Christmas Carol.
Just Carol. Yes. Yes.
Yeah, he was a versatile guy.
And he would tell you, cut this word out of it, you'll get a better laugh. Natalie said, I don't understand. You're always ad-libbing and you're always getting all the laughs. He said, well, practice it. Just practice it. Well, then you'd see the 2 of them ad-libbing. They never stop talking. They'd have to say, cut. No, let's just stick to the script, can we? It was
As long as we're talking about the old co-stars, too, tell us a little bit about Alan Hale Jr., who, of course, came from a showbiz family.
Can you imagine growing up with Errol Flynn and all those people in your house as a young boy? I mean, what heaven it would be. He was a great guy. He was the same size as my dad. He would pick me up and give me a hug, and he loved to cook, so he'd stop by once in a while, and we'd share recipes. We'd go out and hit the golf ball at the Whitsett course out there for a while. He was absolutely the kindest, sweetest, never heard a temper tantrum out of him.
Yeah, I remember it's so funny when you see his father pop up in all those Warner Brothers.
Yeah, he's in a lot of them.
And they look alike, don't they?
Yeah, there's
exactly.
a strong
Yeah.
resemblance.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think he was a childhood friend of William Shallard's, Alan Hale Jr.,
Oh, that
which I found in doing research. I didn't know his mother was an actress, too. His mother was in Silence.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Yeah, he came from a big showbiz family. I always loved the Laurel and Hardy dynamic.
Oh, it was
had.
wonderful. And his granddaughter's doing stand-up. Samantha Hale is doing stand-up.
What name? Under what name?
Samantha Hale.
Samantha Hale. We'll look for her.
Yeah, she's funny. Pretty too.
And I remember, too, being out in L.A., and there was a restaurant, I don't know how long it lasted, called Skipper's.
And he on Los Angeles Boulevard, and he would greet you and shake your hand. He Lobster House. I think it was Alan Hale's Lobster House. I'm not sure what he called it, but he was there every night with his little captain's hat on and his blue shirt. I love that man. I did. Every time he hugged me, he picked me up off the floor. It's the same size as my dad. So every time he hugged me, it was kind of like Daddy was hugging me. It was cool.
And we should talk about Bob Denver, too, since you've mentioned him. And again, the things I find in research, I did not know that he replaced Woody Allen in the original Play It Against Sam on Broadway.
Yeah. He was a real talent. You can't teach comedy, and it came from his soul. He wasn't a wit. He wasn't a clever verbalization of what he did. He was physically like elastic. He could fall out of trees and never hurt himself, and he looked at the world at a different gaze. He had a very severely retarded child, and Bobby would say to me, it was his last child, and he'd say to me, "I am so lucky. I'm communicating with my son in a totally different way." I mean, he was quite a remarkable man, very smart, very talented, quite a loner, not funny in person, not witty, serious, into an awful lot of atom bomb stuff and that kind of stuff. Little Patrick, his son, played in Jack and the Beanstalk. He played Bob, and Alan was the giant. So little Patrick was 5 and dressed up in Gilligan's little outfit and everything. And I said, "Can he spend the weekend with me?" He said, "Sure." So when he got ready to come home with me on Friday night, Bob said, "No, he's probably going to sleep in the outfit. He's probably not going to take it off, and that's okay. That's all right." And as he got ready to leave, instead of his father saying, "Now you make sure you're a good boy and whatever," he got down on his knees and he took Patrick's hands and he said, "Now I just want you to give Mary Ann lots of love." And that's the last thing he said. And Patrick slept in his little outfit with his little hat.
Oh, that's nice.
Now, was it kind of difficult when people recognized him then, if he was a serious person, that they must have wanted him to be Gilligan when they saw him?
Yeah, and I think he was uncomfortable with that, I think. I think he was a shy person, not really outgoing, not trying to be witty. And I think it was kind of awkward for him. I think he was an actor, is really what it was, as opposed to a comedian, where Jim would just be telling his stories one after the other. But Bob was not. Bob was very quiet and very private. Very smart, very smart.
Yeah, I read that in doing the research, I read that he kind of had a scientific, analytical mind. He taught math, and he was interested in those things.
And he was anti-pesticides before everybody thought they weren't any good.
That's right. That's right. He was environmentally conscious.
Yeah, yeah.
The world thinks of him as Maynard. It's funny how people get, not stereotyped, but audiences think of that's their character. That's who they really are. People think of him as Maynard G. Krebs and Gilligan.
And you think I would be a nice Mary Ann. I'm actually a BITCH. You just don't know.
You can't believe that's true.
But you know something? I found out, I was doing some research. Downtown Los Angeles has some incredible theaters, bigger and more beautiful than Broadway. Been closed up all this time. I think there's one that they've remodeled because they use in films. And I was doing some research of a show that I'm interested in doing. And I walked into one of the theaters, and one of the theaters was built by Charlie Chaplin. Do you know who Charlie Chaplin's best friend was?
I know.
Oh, I don't think.
I know, but I don't want to give it away. I'll give you a hint. He was a scientist.
Einstein?
Yes. Yeah. Now, can you imagine those two brains? I mean, how do they connect in some way? And you'll see a picture of Charlie Chaplin walking in arm in arm with Einstein, but Mrs. Einstein's behind them, following him in. I would love to be a fly on the wall with those two minds. It just fascinates me.
I remember hearing an interview with Sid Caesar, where when Sid Caesar was at his height with his show, somebody, his secretary goes, "Oh, Mr. Caesar, Albert Einstein is on the phone." And he goes, "Oh, hang up, Albert Einstein's on the phone." And he
thought it was a joke?
Yeah, he slammed the phone down. Because he thought, why would they be calling me? Yeah. If ever there was a crank call, "Hi, it's Albert Einstein." And he said that Einstein died about 2 weeks later, and he wanted to discuss comedy and the human condition. with Sid Caesar.
Oh, and he never
Wow.
took the call and never got
No.
to speak to him.
Oh, wow.
How interesting.
Yeah, wouldn't that be?
I didn't know Gilligan had a first name until I started doing research, and I've been watching Gilligan's Island for 40 years.
And I don't think it's true.
Not true. Also not true.
No. Well, they say a Willie. Oh,
Yeah.
my manager's saying, yes, it's true. Yes, it's true. Well, we had long discussions on the set. I don't
Okay.
think there really was one. They kind of
No
think
Willie.
there was a Willie Gilligan, but no. Sherwood
Well, they
wanted
never-
one name, just one name. He didn't want to have a first and second name. He wanted one name.
Right. Well, they never called the skipper Jonas Grumby on the show, did they?
No. You heard it on the radio once, I think.
Oh, this was a weird bit of trivia. It's like the name of the boat was the minnow, which everyone assumes, well, it's a little fish, a minnow. But it actually wasn't, according to something I read.
Yeah, and what was he? He was. What was he? What
Yeah,
was his title?
he-
Head of
he-
television or something?
He worked for the FCC.
FCC, that's it.
And Sherwood Schwartz hated him, and it was something Minnow was his name. So he named the boat the
good
Minnow.
trivia.
Minnow.
Yeah.
He got back at him, didn't he? Well, there's a wonderful story, too, about what you believe with television this day and age. But we were filming maybe about the 5th or 6th week. Sherwood said, we're never going to get reruns. They hated us. The only reason we're on the air is because the audience gave such a good reaction. And we're at about the 3rd or 4th episode, something like that. And Sherwood walks in with the Coast Guard. Big mucky mucks, 5 or 6 guys from the Coast Guard. And we stopped filming, and he said, the Coast Guard just has something they want to say to you. And the Coast Guard said, we have received many telegrams saying there are 7 people stranded in the Pacific Ocean. Why can't you find them? Now, does that tell you about the audience?
That's
does
just
that tell you who
frightening.
we're appealing to? They believed it. They really believed it. We were out there floating around.
We had Dick Van Dyke on the show, Dawn, and he told, and I think this is true, that Jerry Van Dyke, his brother, was considered for
Yes.
the Gilligan part, or that Sherwood wanted him originally.
Yeah.
Dick claims that he talked him out of doing it, or he talked him into doing My Mother the Car.
Mother
I guess
the
he
Car.
had the choice.
Yeah, and I
Of the
think
two.
there were 2 or 3 other people considered.
Yeah, I think Jerry Van Dyke felt there'd be more respectability in doing a show about a guy who lives with his mother reincarnated as a car.
The great Ann Southern.
Good
Our researcher
plot.
Paul is in the room. What do you got, Paul?
I want to go back to Minnow,
Yeah, the minnow. Oh, Paul's got the
yes.
story on the minnow here.
Okay, give me the real one.
or Newton Norman Minnow is his full name. He was head of the FCC,
FCC.
and he's known for, it's now the 50th anniversary of his famous speech in which he referred to television as a vast wasteland.
That's right. A vast wasteland.
How interesting.
How true.
Didn't know that. So it was a little payback there.
Yeah. You think comedy's easy, don't you? They found that one out.
I also read that when Sherwood Schwartz was pitching the show, and I hope this is true because I love it, that a CBS executive was pushing for the idea of an animated dinosaur.
They've talked about that. Maybe the 2nd season they were going to bring in a dinosaur. And somebody said, you're just going to see a foot and a chain. How are you going to get Gilligan and the dinosaur in a shot? I mean, it was so ridiculous.
When the show first came on, Dawn, I mean, I've seen interviews with you, and you said that I guess it was not the network, but the press was not kind to the show. They thought it was ridiculous.
Oh, thought it was the worst show ever written. Yeah, and CBS didn't think they'd had a prayer, but they showed it to an audience. And it was the highest rated audience reaction. And they said, well, we're not stupid. Let's keep it on the air. And we were
Right.
actually in the top 10 when we were canceled, which is also a remarkable when you stop and think about it.
Yeah, one of the shows that went from black and white to color back in those days.
And Sherwood said, we're probably never going to go to color. We probably won't get any reruns. And we just had our 50th anniversary, never been off the air. I would love to see it in another language. I'd love to see the song in Japanese or everybody talking in another language. Wouldn't that be fascinating?
Yeah, there must be dubbed versions of it.
Sure.
Tell us about some of the censorship too. I've heard you say you weren't allowed to show your belly button, and the Howells had to sleep in twin beds, and
Well, they always did that. I mean, I think
That kind of
the
stuff,
Van
sure.
Dyke slept in swim. That was kind of way back when. But I think I was the first short shorts on television. And I designed them because I'm short and short-legged, and Ginger's 8 feet tall with these long legs. So I got the regular denim that's soft, and I made it kind of come up so it would cover my navel and dip down on the side so my torso would look longer and my legs would look longer, blah, blah, blah. And Tina couldn't show her cleavage either. And Sherwood his wife would say, "How was your day, dear, at the office?" "Well, between Dawn's navel and Tina's cleavage, I was called back and forth all day long because you could only show it for 30 seconds or something. Now look what's happening. You're topless on the piano singing. I don't know. I mean,
Things have changed. Well, Barbara Eden famously couldn't show her navel either.
That's right.
On Jeannie, on I Dream of Jeannie.
I Dream of Jeannie. It didn't
Can we
hurt.
ask you about some of the other things, Dawn, that you did when you? First of all, let's go back. I mean, I don't know how many people know this. You were playing a farm girl from Kansas, but you yourself were actually from the gambling capital of
Darn right.
of America.
Reno, Nevada. Reno and Las
Yeah,
Vegas. My father
yeah.
had a hotel in Las Vegas. My
Your
great
father owned the Thunderbird, right?
And my great-great-grandfather drove stagecoach during the gold rush. He drove the dignitaries when the Golden Spike was driven in Utah. My grandmother, my mother's mother, as a little girl, played at Piper Opera House, where Mark Twain was. I mean, I'm a real Westerner. Black Bart held up my other grandmother, robbed them all of their, tied them up and put them in the basement, robbed them all of their food. By the time they got out, he'd left a $50 gold piece on the table. I mean, I'm a real Westerner, and it's really kind of nice to go back. You know, Easterners, it's 4 or 5 generations. This is not that far back. So the stories that my mom has told me are really something. I'm very proud to be a Westerner.
Well, how did you get from Reno? I know you were in a beauty pageant. You were Miss Nevada.
Well, that means nothing. You know, there's 3 women in the whole state. It's no big deal. And they asked me to run for Miss Nevada in the middle of my junior year. And I thought, well, that's interesting. I wonder if I could get up in front of a bunch of people and do a scene, you know, act and see how that was, having no idea I'd win, as short as I am and all of that. And I did win, and I did go to the Miss America pageant and won a scholarship for the rest of my college education. And then when I got through, when I was a senior, I said, I'll give myself 2 years. And if I'm not working, I'm going back to med school. So I went to work right away. I got a play with Mercedes McCambridge and Leon Ames at the Music Box
Mercedes
Theater.
McCambridge.
Yes,
Wow, there's a name.
You bet. And she was
The
really
voice of The Exorcist.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the voice of the demon.
Yeah, and I did a play with him, and I got an agent because of that. And then, of course, I was a perfect ingenue, you know, the perfect type. You have
Sure.
to be the perfect type. So
And you popped up in these classic early TV shows.
Lots of them.
lots of them.
like-
Well, that's all there was.
Yeah, but
What else was there?
Bonanza, 77 Sunset Strip, Maverick, Hawaiian Eye.
Wagon Train. There's so
Wagon
many.
Train.
Yeah.
Well, I've heard you say that you chose California because when you thought about going in acting, you chose California over New York because you thought New York
It was
you
mostly
couldn't sing.
musicals. That's right. It was
Yeah, you
mostly
couldn't
musicals.
sing.
I can tell you a lot of stories about my not singing if you want to. Shirley
Yes.
Schwartz said, "For He's a Jolly Good Fellow, we're all going to sing it." I said, "Shirley, I don't sing." He said, "Of course you do. This is the first or second episode, so we're all singing for He's a Jolly Good Fellow." He said, "Dawn, you out. Don't sing. You're getting everybody off key." Okay, so I've gone through that 3 or 4 times. Now I'm starring in a movie called Winterhawk, and we're up in the mountains of Montana, and I'm playing a missionary, and it was probably one of the most beautiful films ever. And the director said to me, "Now I want you to lead the choir in Amazing Grace." I said, "Charlie, I cannot sing." He said, "Yes, everybody can sing." No. So he started me. He said, "You're right, you can't sing." So I'm a missionary, 1840, with the long skirts. So I'm standing in the middle of a field with all the missionaries around me, and he puts a girl between my legs, sitting on the grass, and I cover her with my skirt. And I'm mouthing Amazing Grace, and she's singing through my skirt. So about a year later, I was over here at one of the restaurants, and I was sitting at the bar talking to my friend, and I was telling this story about me singing through the skirt. And the woman next to me tapped me on the shoulder. She said, "I was the woman under your skirt."
Oh, that's funny.
It is funny.
I know that movie Winterhawk. Woody Strode is in it.
Woody Strode is-
One of our favorite
Oh,
actors.
yeah. Yeah. It was a wonderful film, a beautiful film. It really
Yeah.
was incredibly photographed, too. It was terrific.
You know who else turns up in that movie? This is
Elijah
kind of
Cook?
fun. Sasheen Littlefeather.
Yes,
Does that
Sasheen.
name mean anything to you?
Marlon
Marlon
Brando's.
Yes.
When he wouldn't accept the Academy Award.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, she was the one that went up and accepted the award for him.
That was one of the most ridiculous things to ever happen in Academy Award history.
Yeah, I'll say.
And now here's some. These are things that so many people have commented on already. So it's already a tired subject, but we got to hit on it.
Okay.
All the ridiculous things in Gilligan's Island, like they had a professor who could invent flying machines but couldn't figure out how to get people off
Well, it's
the...
a
How to nail the
suspension of
hole in the boat.
disbelief.
And Sherwood said, if you had two pretty girls on an island, would you try to fix the boat? Are you crazy?
Yes, well said. Well, the question that I always heard was, why did Thurston Howell bring all his money? Why did he bring suitcases of money for a 3-hour tour?
And all our clothes. Why did we bring all those
the
clothes for a 3-hour tour?
Ginger had a big Hollywood wardrobe.
She had 30 outfits.
Yeah.
And we always looked good. Our hair was perfect. The false eyelashes was amazing what we did on that island.
I want to talk to a little bit more about Russell Johnson, because we were talking before we turned on the mics, Dawn, and he's in a favorite episode of The Twilight Zone.
Oh, yeah.
Of Gilbert's and mine, where he goes back in time to try to prevent John Wilkes Booth
Oh, yes.
from shooting Lincoln. Have you seen that one?
Yes.
It's
I've
very
forgotten
good.
that. Yes.
But you guys not only had a friendship, but you just alluded to it briefly before. But tell the thing about the. First of all, I found it interesting that you performed in a prison together.
Yes, Folsom.
Folsom
He was
Prison.
more frightened than I was. He said,
What
"You better
happened
get me
there?"
out of here."
I didn't know he flew 44 combat missions.
And I
that
did
he
not
won a
know
Purple
until
Heart.
his funeral that he won the Purple Heart. We knew that he was shot down in the Solomon Islands, but he was just a joy and the funniest. He had the best sense of humor.
He was a humble man. I mean, he never
Yes.
revealed that he had a medal.
He was
Tell
lovely.
Tell us a little bit about the rest, how you guys bonded over that.
Well, we still sent
What
each other
happened?
cards. Love the rest, love the rest. And actually, Bob made the difference after the first year. And I think what really happened was, I think Ginger was cast before Russell and I were cast. And I'm sure the agent said she gets the last billing, period. Nobody after her. So they had to, make our contract. And after the first year, Bob said, that's just silly. There's 7 people. And he went to Sherwood, and Sherwood said, well, it's contractual. And he said, then put me back. I'll be on the rest as well. So because he said that, we got our credits.
That's how it changed.
Yeah.
And they had to re-record the song, obviously,
Yeah. How sweet, though. How nice.
to add that.
But I think the rest is wonderful. Love the rest. We still love each other. The rest.
And they had all those strange sequels to Gilligan's Island.
Oh, the 3 TV movies.
Yeah.
Oh, 90 minutes of Gilligan's Island is way too much. Don't you
What'd you
think?
say?
90 minutes of Gilligan's Island is way too much.
Well, there was a demand for it.
I guess so.
It's a popular show.
Oh, it is. And it's all over the world. Wouldn't you love to see it in Japanese or something?
Yes,
would
I
love to
really
see it.
would.
Yeah.
Like the most famous of those is the Harlem Globetrotters.
Well, wait, there were 3.
Yeah.
There was Rescue from Gilligan's Island in
Yes.
'78. And I'd like to point out that the director of that, I hope you remember Leslie Martinson.
Of course, I remember Leslie Martin.
He's 101.
Is he still alive?
He is still with us.
How
he also
wonderful.
He also directed the Batman movie, the Adam
Oh.
West, the Burt Ward Adam West feature film. They put out a feature film in '67. He's alive. He's
Oh, wow.
101. We should try to get him on.
I think so. He was such a lovely man. Oh, I'm so happy to hear that.
Yeah.
Is that Batman movie the one where they have the shark?
Yeah, the
repellent?
anti-bat shark repellent. They made a feature to cash in on the Batman series, Dawn,
okay.
and he directed it. That was the first Gilligan's Island reunion. The second one was called The Castaways on Gilligan's Island in '79.
Where we built
and
the
then
hotel.
finally,
Yes.
Yes, the
Yeah.
famous classic.
the classic Harlem Globetrotters on Gilligan's
The
Island.
And they
story
surf on
that
and
needed
surf
to
off and
be
never
told.
tell anybody where they were.
What is that?
I said they surf on and surf off, and you never don't tell anybody where you were.
I remember
guess-
watching them, and I remember having trouble following the story. They got rescued, and then they went back.
Yeah, we went on a Christmas cruise and got marooned again.
One of the interesting things about the Harlem Globetrotters on Gilligan's Island, it guest starred a pre-Academy Award winning Martin Landau.
Oh my God!
And
Yeah.
Geese Osby, you know Geese Osby, one of the Globetrotters, a little comedian. I had a cousin that was a little slow, and he would come down and watch the show from Reno. And he came down and watched when the Harlem Globetrotters were playing with us. And Randy was his name, and he was very sweet. And he went up and met Geese Osby and spoke with him for a few minutes. 2 years later in Reno, Nevada, the Harlem Globetrotters came. My cousin took Randy to the game, and Geese walked right off the court and said, "Hi, Randy, I haven't seen you in 2 years. How are you?"
Oh, that's
Doesn't
nice.
that tell you something?
The premise of that, that Harlem Globetrotters. Well, first of all, Martin Landau was the last role with his wife, with Barbara Bain.
It was the last
The
thing
last
he did
time,
with
yeah,
her?
they divorced. They divorced after that.
Well,
He was the. I don't know if it had anything to do with
I
it.
had a lot to
If
do with the
ever there
plot.
was a reason.
He was a mad scientist, and he built robots, and the payoff was the robots had to play basketball against the Globetrotters.
It's a
I
real
wonder
good
if
plot,
won
isn't it?
best writing that year.
And the Howl suddenly had a son. That was the
Where did that come from?
no. Suddenly a son turned up in the Harlem Globetrotters.
Maybe it was a
I'm
nephew.
feeling-
I think it was a nephew.
Was it?
Yes, because Lovey couldn't have children, certainly. She just spoiled the wardrobe.
I didn't know Lovey was barren. And the Scatman turned up in that one, Gil.
Oh, my God.
Scatman Crothers.
Wow.
Oh, wow,
Yeah.
you're good at this.
Oh, it's just research, but I remember that movie. I remember very well.
We've had to live it down over and over.
Let's ask you about some of these other credits and other things that you've done over the years, Dawn. See how many of you can remember. I mean,
See if I can remember anything.
Some of these, well, the old ones like 87th Precinct and Lawman and Surfside 6 and Hawaiian Eye. I mean, these are fun credits.
Well, and that's when I began. You know, I started
Yeah.
when I started at Warner Brothers. They put me under option for contract. They didn't pick up a contract, but I did all the shows. I'll tell you a cute story. I had a very small little agent, and I went to an interview at Warner Brothers of some sort. And my agent called me. He said, "Dawn, I had a great call this afternoon." I said, "What?" He said, "Well, Jack Warner called me." And he said, "I just want to tell you, I had an intelligent conversation with an actress today."
Oh, wow.
I mean,
That's a compliment.
Oh, I didn't want to be in the movies. You know, I came here as a graduate and then I'll give myself some time and then I'll go back to school. So I wasn't interested in being a movie star or anything. And I think we had a conversation about an all-women's college. We had a great time in the office, not auditioning particularly. And I thought it was really kind of a nice compliment that he called my agent and said, I actually
is.
had an intelligent conversation.
Do you have any recollection of being on the Joey Bishop show in 1964?
Yes, I do. And it was kind of live with an audience. Yeah, he was funny.
Yeah. And then you were in a show, and this is relevant because we just talked about this show on the podcast, The Invaders,
Oh.
with Roy Finnis.
With Roy.
Oh, that's where
Yes.
he's the only guy who knew the world was taken over by aliens, and they all had deformed pinkies.
Does this mean anything to you,
Really? I
Dawn?
don't remember that in the plot, but
I once ran into Roy Finnis somewhere, and I told him that I remembered that and the pinkies, and he was in shock.
he didn't know. He's quite an artist. I was at one of these autograph show things and I bought one of his paintings. But, you know, we were filming. It was the first thing I did after Gilligan's Island. It was out in
Right,
the
67.
Mojave Desert or something. It must have been 120 degrees, and I had on long Levi's and a long sleeve sweater and a long fall on my head. And they had to put burlap down when I walked because the sand would melt my tennis shoes. And the only thing that we had was one Joshua tree that we tried with an umbrella to stay under from the heat. It was 120 degrees. It was horrible, just horrible. We should have gotten a stunt check for that.
You remember anything about the Wild Wild West or Bonanza?
Well, I just happen to know that I did a lot of the Wild West because I'm one of the few girls that's not taller than he is.
Then Robert Conrad.
You heard that from my mouth, yes. Very
And you
nice.
did both voices. You did Mary Ann's voice and Ginger's voice for Gilligan, the animated series Gilligan's Planet.
Yes, I did.
I feel so deceived.
That was fun. The first time I said, okay, let's go. I'll do all the Mary Ann voices, and then we'll come back and we'll do all the Ginger voices. And after halfway through, I said, I can talk to myself. I can be Ginger talking to Mary Ann. It was really fun. I enjoyed that.
And here, very important trivia.
Yeah, hit me.
I think I'd love to. I think Ginger was Jewish.
Tina Louise?
Yeah.
Or Ginger Grant?
No,
He
Ginger.
being a Jewish fella, Dawn, he has an obsession with which celebrities were Jewish and which
Were
aren't.
you saying the character was Jewish, or you
No,
saying
no,
No.
Tina Louise herself.
Oh, maybe so. I don't know that. I don't know. I have a cute little story though. When Tina married Les Crane at the wedding, and
Yes.
Jim Backus says, "Now, when you guys get a divorce, who's going to get custody of the mirror?"
That's funny.
Isn't that a cute story? They're both so good looking.
Now, what amazes me, you worked with Elijah Cook Jr.?
Yes.
Wilmer the Gunsel.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, can you tell us, because he was one of those guys, like every every Warner Brothers picture,
picture.
he'd pop up.
Yeah.
And so what was it like working with Elijah Cook Jr.?
Well, and there were 3 or 4 of the other guys, too, that did all those Western movies and stuff together.
Rory Calhoun, yeah, he was on one.
Yeah. Yeah, he was in our show, but this is a Winterhawk with Elijah Cook and Denver Pyle, all the old actors. And I tell you something, Cookie they called him, and he was so sweet. My grandmother passed away, excuse me, during the show, and I couldn't get off to go to the funeral. We were in the middle of the Rocky Mountains. And in the door of my hotel room the next morning was a bouquet of violets and a poem saying, "Life is like an onion. You peel off one layer at a time. Sometimes you cry." And he left that for me when my grandmother died at the front of my door. Now, how he got violets in the middle of a town of cowboys and snow and whatever. I mean, he was a very sweet man. Very talented,
was
too. But
Elijah Cook Jr.? It's so amazing because anyone who knows his career knows, like, in movies, he's like the sleaziest, most underhanded character you'll ever meet.
How sweet. Wasn't that sweet?
Yeah, that's an amazing story.
We have to ask you about some of the other guest stars because these are people that obviously we were telling you before that the show is kind of about old show business, and these names come up. Phil
Right.
Silvers, for instance,
Oh,
on
gosh, yes.
Gilligan's Island,
Yes.
playing Harold Hecuba,
Yeah.
the movie producer.
And that
What
we
can
did
you
a
tell us
takeoff on Shakespeare. Yes.
That's right. Oh, yeah, that's right. You had to do Hamlet.
I think
What was
he's one of the investors. Glad to See You Productions is the company, and I think Glad to See You was Phil Silvers.
What was Phil Silvers like?
Funny.
Yeah.
Very strong, very knew exactly what he wanted to do. Comedians are very interesting. They're very different personalities. Some of them are shy and they just sparkle when the light comes on. And he was very much in control. He knew what was funny. Let's cut this line. This is funnier. He was a genius with all that stuff.
And how about when Zsa Zsa was on as Erica Tiffany Smith, as the socialite?
She was very glamorous, and she was selling a Rolls Royce, and I got to drive it around the lot to see what it was like. It was like driving a diesel truck. It's so hard to turn a corner. She was exactly what you'd expect her to be. Don Rickles, on the other hand, kept us laughing night and day, and sure would say if it had been a 5-day shoot, I wouldn't have hired him because you can't laugh that many days in a row. He was wonderful. All
That's
our
a
guest
weird
stars are
episode.
wonderful.
He plays a compulsive kidnapper,
Yeah.
Don Rickles. And our pal Larry Storch was a bank robber.
Yes.
And here's another good one. A favorite of Gilbert's is the
Yes.
actor John MacGyver.
Oh, he was wonderful. The butterfly, wasn't he catching the
He was
butterflies?
the butterfly collector, yes.
Yeah.
And Rory Calhoun wandered through in that hunter's outfit, and Tina and I just followed him drooling. He was the best
Yeah, that
looking
was
thing you
the-
ever saw.
The send-up of The Most Dangerous Game, where Rory Calhoun
my
shows up as a
God.
big game hunter and decides he's going to hunt Gilligan.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And of course, yeah, with John MacGyver, who I've always been a fan of.
He keeps coming up on this show, yeah.
Everything must be run according to schedule. I am in charge of things here. It must be run like a tight ship.
Well done.
Did you ever hear anybody do John MacGyver?
No, never before.
There's more of a demand for it than ever.
Kids love it.
We're going on the road.
The teens demand it. What about the great Sterling Holloway?
Wow.
Oh, he was wonderful. It was the pigeon, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
He was lovely.
And Hans Conried,
Oh, I loved Hans
who
Conried.
played Wrong Way Feldman,
Yeah, I loved him too.
the pilot, the wayward pilot.
Gosh, those good plots, weren't they?
And Vito Scotti.
Oh, yes, with the
Yeah, who
voices.
we love-
We all
we love
changed our
too.
voices or something. Russell said, I can't talk as fast as you, Dawn. I can't do your voice. It's so hard. Those dream sequences were the most fun. The vampire and the Mary Poppins thing. And
Isn't that your favorite episode? Where you did the Cockney
the
accent?
Cockney accent, sure. You got
What was the plot of that one? I'm trying to remember.
No earthly idea. I think it was a Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. It was a court. It was a court
Yes.
case. Was it a Jekyll and Mr. Hyde? I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah. I'm remembering the professor turning into Mr. Hyde
Yes.
for some reason.
Yes. And Gilligan in the coffin, whatever that was with his.
And Kurt Russell, a very young Kurt Russell,
I'll
showed up
say
as
he was 12.
the Jungle Boy.
And it was so interesting because child actors, you always look around and see what's going to happen. But Bing was his father. And in between takes, he was out tossing the balls with him. He wasn't a showbiz dad at all. He was taking him out and playing baseball, and he was a lovely young man.
And speaking of actors, and this could be BS as well, was Carol O'Connor sought for the role of the skipper?
Well, it was kind of considered, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, Jerry Van Dyke, I don't even know who they thought of for Bob. Somebody else for Bob. I don't know. Jerry Van Dyke would be Bob, and I don't know. I don't know. The chemistry
think about
was
the
so
alternate
right,
universe version of Gilligan's Island. Tell us how much mail you were getting, Dawn. You were getting a lot. You were even getting wedding proposals.
I was.
Marriage proposals.
I still am. Isn't
You're
that
still
amazing?
getting them.
Yeah. Now they're 95 when they're asking me. They were 25 and hunks then, but now who knows? No, I think Marianne was the marrying kind. I mean, I get the most fan mail. I got the most fan mail because
Right.
I think a young girl would write to me and say, I'd like to be your best friend. And I've had so many soldiers say, you were in my helmet. I wanted to come home and marry a Marianne. I wrote a book, What Would Marianne Do?
Yeah,
and
so
I
we
really,
have it right here.
Yeah, and I really think it has a lot to
2014.
say because it's now Kardashians and $500 purses. And, raising a teenager today or a teenage girl today has got to be a horrendous experience. And I think Marianne had some values. I think she shared, she helped out, she was fair, she wasn't temperamental, she wasn't all about how she looked. I mean, I think she's a really good role model.
Yeah, I read the book. When did you publish it? 2014?
2014.
What Would Marianne Do? A Guide to Life. It's a fun, quick read.
Yeah, I'm very proud of it. I think it had a lot to say. Because my character, I can't go anywhere in the world. Marianne, it's fascinating to me. What the simple little character that you think she is was sort of the rudder.
Did you say you were somewhere, some remote location like the Solomon Islands or
Yes,
somewhere, and
yes.
somebody came up to you?
I've climbed the Rwanda gorillas, and 5 of my friends, I don't do anything athletic because of my knees, but I'm an adventuresome person. So we canoed through the Solomon Islands with a friend who had a photographer that knew where we were going. And I canoed up to the island of Sulufu. The chief's family had been chief for 9 generations. His son was at the University of Fiji studying to be a chief. And they were all doing little war dances and everything. Is no running water, no electricity, all the little huts up on stakes, And as we canoed up, the chief's wife went, I know you, to me. And I went, what? In the middle of the Pacific Ocean. She said, yes, in 1979, I went to nursing school in the Solomon Islands for a year, and I used to come home and watch you in black and white. Now, in the middle of nowhere. Can you imagine?
Power of television.
Yeah, it is.
That's very cool.
Well,
Here's
and
a
you liked my character, too. You'd be a friend, my character. I didn't play the witch or something, Marianne would have been your friend.
Sure. Mm-hmm. Strange departure. You made a movie about Bigfoot called Return to Boggy Creek.
Yes. Yeah. It's one of my highlights. Actually, it was fun because we were shooting in the swamps. And we were in Louisiana, and I come from Nevada. We've not even seen any water to begin with, and the good old boys living in the swamps would come and bring their children with their pet rats on leashes. I mean,
Pet rats,
and they were going to a cockfight, I think. And I said, I want to see that. You're not going to go to that. I said, I just want to see that. We're not taking you. It's too vicious. I mean, it's back in the backwoods. It was quite an experience.
They had pet rats.
on leashes.
On leashes.
Now, would the rats fight also, or is this just cockfighting?
No, I mean, it was like their little puppy. It was their pet. I mean, they weren't fighting the rats. That was the only
bizarre.
Cocker Spaniel they could get.
Oh, God.
Yeah, imagine.
Well, I'll have some nightmares tonight.
Rats on leashes.
Well, and they're swimming with water moccasins. Imagine what those swamps are like in Louisiana. It's pretty tough.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah.
Dawn, you're still doing theater around the country because you've been in 100 production. I'd say over 100 productions.
Yeah.
You did The Lion in Winter. You've done Steel Magnolias. What are you doing now?
They're asking me to do Driving Miss Daisy, which I'm considering.
Great.
Yeah, and I've done Love Lost and several of the vagina monologues and that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. I'm always looking for the role that kind of stretches me, Driving Miss Daisy would be great.
And you were in The Bold and the Beautiful recently?
Well, yes. One time I was bold and beautiful. It was just great. I don't know. I'd never done a soap before, and I loved them, and it was quite an interesting experience to just walk on, not know anybody, and all the cameras are coming at you from every direction. I enjoyed it. I got a kick out of it.
And tell us, too, about my wife is a big fan of Roseanne, and I love the Roseanne episode with the flashbacks.
Yes, wasn't that great?
Where you guys show up.
And
Tell
all
us
playing
about
the
that
characters.
experience.
Well, it was fun. I mean, it was great, and she was at her heyday. Roseanne was, and it was.
Sure.
I was playing Darlene. I do recall the boots of hers that I wore that must have weighed 50 pounds a boot. I don't know how the girl walked around after 2:00 in the afternoon. It was fun. It was fun. I mean, you don't realize when you're doing it, you'd have no idea the influence this show has had. As silly as it was, and the critics thought it was the stupidest thing ever, and I can't go anywhere in the world. I mean, it's everybody's. It's like the soldiers saying, "I want to come home and marry a Marianne." It's something of America. It's something of who we are. It's something of how we were all raised that resonates.